Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Chris McGilvery. I am one of the instructional designers for West Texas A&M University. Welcome to today's afternoon training for test integrity using Respondus LockDown Browser and Monitor. We're excited that you guys are here. We're excited to share these new tools with you all and some best practices. And so we'll get started here shortly. We'll give folks another minute to join. So it's good to see some familiar faces. We appreciate you all coming to these trainings to help you develop your courses, whether they're hybrid, online, or your face-to-face courses. So we'll get started here shortly. As we begin today's training, if you could go and type in the chat box, which is going to be located in the tools near your mute button and your video button. If you'll look for the chat box and type in your name and what department you're working in, and I'd like for you guys just to type your responses, your department, and your name. And then we'll have one question. We'll use the chat box feature here shortly. Thank you. Y'all are fast at this. Awesome. Hey, Joy. Hey, Andrea. Pam. Kim. Welcome. Greg. Sandra. Awesome. It's nice to have everyone here. Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. My name is Chris McGilvery. I am collaborating with Dr. Mallory Vestal, who is a faculty member in the College of Agriculture and Natural Sciences. Dr. Vestal, would you like to introduce yourself and share a little bit about who you are?
Sure. So as Chris said, my name is Dr. Vestal, and I have been at WT since 2012. I'm in the Department of Agriculture, primarily within ag business and economics. So.
Well, and I'm glad you're here, and I think it's really important that when we are able to collaborate with one another, faculty and instructional designers, we're able to share really great examples with faculty to learn best practices. When I found out that Dr. Vestal was using Respondus Monitor before we even began to develop training materials, I was like, okay, we need to chat, we need to collaborate. And so that's why our team decided to bring her in for this training. And so she'll be giving some insights throughout the training. So before we get started, I know that test integrity is really important for faculty to really be able to assess their students' knowledge and what they're gaining from what you're teaching. And so as you all have taught face-to-face and now online, what are some ways that you've used? What do you do for test integrity in your face-to-face courses or your online courses? If you can type in your responses in the chat box. So what do you do for test integrity in your face-to-face and or online courses? So when you're face-to-face, walk the room, look mean. Folks use a proctor, so you might have a lab environment where you have computers and you're able to walk around and ensure there's Respondus LockDown Browser perhaps, or another tool. So folks are in transition now, so trying to figure out a resource to help support and test integrity. Yep, randomized questions. So 2 versions of the test. The answers are coming in. Walking around and face-to-face, use multiple forms. No hats. So some of this stuff you're going to be able to apply in an online course, especially with Respondus Monitor. And so keep your responses going, share your ideas with other faculty members. Today's training, we're going to go over two tools. We're going to go over Respondus LockDown Browser, and we're going to go over Respondus Monitor. So Respondus LockDown Browser works with Respondus Monitor. It's a companion application. And so you can choose to use Respondus LockDown Browser by itself, or you can use both the browser and the Respondus Monitor to help promote test integrity. And then we're also going to share some tips and best practices. And as you guys continue to explore new strategies and methods, feel free to connect with our instructional design team. We would love to collaborate with you all to continue to share these tips and best practices. And so one of the things that we want to touch base is what to provide students. And so I'm going to have Dr. Vessel share what she has provided students before implementing Respondus LockDown Browser.
Okay, thanks, Chris. So just to give everyone a little bit of backstory, this is a very new product that we have access to here at WT. And I'm hoping Chris will cut me off if I ever say anything that's incorrect or inaccurate. But as a relatively new product, I teach online in the summer, and I've taught primarily fully online just in the summer. And in the long semesters, my classes are all face-to-face. And this summer, I knew we had this new product, and I really am going to be sharing a lot of your stories of me implementing the LockDown Browser and the Monitor in both my Summer 1 online and my Summer 2 online classes. And so I kind of jumped at the chance. I felt like it was a great opportunity for me to just really jump in and learn this software, and to be able, because I knew a lot of my classes were going to have to go high flex because of classroom capacity issues in the fall. So I really wanted to have this tool in my toolbox. So I was blessed in a lot of ways, because in my Summer 1 class, I decided to use it, but I did not give a lot of notice about having a webcam. And so as Chris will tell you, it's really important that you let students know ahead of time, make sure that they have a webcam on their computer. Now, this was only an issue, I think, for one student, and so we were able to find a workaround for that one student. And so that would be the first tip that I would give you, is make sure that you give them a heads up that they do need to have a webcam either on their computer or have a tablet. And Chris will talk about some of the limitations and things like that as we move forward. But there are workarounds, and I had 40 students, and like I said, I only had one that did not have a computer that had a webcam. So we were able to work around that. Chris, do you want me to keep going?
Yeah, you could share more insights if you'd like.
Okay, well, no, it's up to you. You tell me.
So, okay, so I definitely, you want to, I think if you can just share a little bit here, I'll go ahead and share some quick tips real quick, and then if you want to follow up with that,
sure.
That's okay. So like Dr. Vessel was saying, is you want to give instructions and advance notice to your students. And so instructions on how to access, download, and install Respondus LockDown Browser onto their computer. And so we have the detailed instructions where you will be able to have your students download it. It's a one-time installation. Advanced notice of technology requirements, and so they need to have a computer, they need to have a webcam or a tablet. There are some limitations with tablets. Chromebook is not compatible with Respondus LockDown Browser and Monitor, and so it's really important to be specific in your technology requirements as you develop your syllabi and make sure that you include these requirements so students can understand what they need for your courses, and then also they know it's their responsibility since they've registered, they read, you know, their syllabi and know that these are the technology requirements. And so one thing that as we were planning this training, we were talking about practice. And so do you want to share a little bit about your practice technique?
Sure. So I'll tell you a couple of things that I did, because as you can imagine, students sometimes panic with exams and with things that are going to impact their grade a lot. So I'm going to show you at the end of our Zoom meeting today some of my courses and how I structured them. The first thing that I would tell you is our instructional designers have put together a great module that you can add to your landing page. And so I added that module to my landing page, and then in my introductory welcome to the class video, I always highlight it. So I always explain to them, hey, this is where you can find information for Respondus and how to get that downloaded. And then what I did is I always do assessment, some type of assessment, whether it be a pre and post or something like that. And what I did is I took my assessment quiz, which is just a 10-question multiple choice true false quiz, and I put it into Respondus. And it's a completion activity, so they just have to complete it and enter in their answers. And so it can be fruitful both because it allows them to get the software installed and downloaded, that it's not going to impact their grade, so they can kind of relax a little bit through that, and you get to collect your assessment data as well. So I did that at the onset of the semester. Now I also, before every exam, just gave them what I called an exam warm-up. And it was just a 5-question, they could complete it. They didn't have to complete it. If they did, it helps them, I think, because they got to kind of warm up, you know, what types of questions and things like that. But I did a little warm-up quiz using both the LockDown Browser and Monitor just to get them ready to go for then their exam. So
I like to call it low stakes, no stakes practice. And so that's something that we definitely recommend to provide to your students. And so all resources for Respondus LockDown Browser and Monitor will be available at faculty.wtamu.edu, and you'll click on the icon. And so for Respondus LockDown Browser, it's designed to be used for online tests. You'll be able to lock down the browser and prevent cheating in an online test. And so they won't be able to go to specific, you know, browsers while they're taking it. However, one great thing is you customize it. So if you do have a online resource that you would like them to have access to while they're taking their test, you can include those URLs, and I'll be able to show you how to edit the settings to include those URLs. It's used for proctored environments and in-person testing centers, and so there might be a lab with computers where Respondus LockDown Browser is available, and you have a proctor that walks around the room and ensures that everyone is, you know, logged into Respondus LockDown Browser, and they're able to take a test in that environment. And it integrates well with Blackboard, and it works with the assessment tool. So when you're building a test or a quiz, we would recommend that you're using Respondus LockDown Browser and or a Respondus Monitor on summative assessments, so your tests that are going to you know, be worth major points for your students, and so that they know they are having to use this environment and use it from the beginning. So the first exam that you have, you want to use these resources, these tools, so that they get used to it, and so you can figure out any students that are having issues, and you can work with them or help them come up with a plan to make sure that they're using these tools to complete the requirements of the course. With the application, with Respondus LockDown Browser, students cannot print, they can't capture screen content, go to other websites, access any other applications, unless you all decide you want them to access specific URLs, and I'll share how to do that. So, when working with faculty, moving from face-to-face online, folks would ask, well, what if they do print, or what if they do capture my questions? And so this is an opportunity for you all to be able to integrate it so that you can protect your intellectual work. So to enforce all students to close their browser, so if there are any applications or browsers open, it would come up with a message and tell the student to force close it or it will not work. And so they have to close everything, and then they'll be able to see and complete the tests through a Respondus LockDown Browser. So they'll click on the icon on their desktop once it's installed, and they'll be able to log into Blackboard and complete the test. And I'll be able to share a demo here later so that you guys can see what does the student see, and we'll also share how do you set it up, how do you set up Respondus LockDown Browser, and how do you set up Respondus Monitor. And so there are settings where your students say that they're at home and they have children, and one of their kids gets hurt and they have to tend to their child. You'll be able to have a setting where it doesn't force them to complete the test, but they can exit out of it and they can explain their emergency and close it. And so then at the end of when you're grading it, you'll be able to review what the students say, and you get to decide based on the circumstances on a case-by-case scenario, if you want to give them another attempt. So there are some settings where you'll be able to have that option. We would recommend you do that because you never know, there might be an emergency, and so it'll allow them to exit the exam easily. So how do you access Respondus LockDown Browser? So it is in your tools. If you don't see it, you'll have to turn it on. But when you go into your control panel, your control tools, you should be able to click on it and you'll have access to resources. We welcome all faculty to review all of the resources. There's going to be video tutorials and additional links that will be helpful as you get to learn more about this. If you need to go back to it to watch, you can even use these resources to give to the students as well, so that they can watch and understand the tools that you'll be using in your classroom. And so I am going to go ahead and go through the demo real quick. Let's see. I'm going to show you the steps of how to turn it on. So instead of reading this, you all will have a copy of this slide, and so you can refer back to it. From the student perspective, they're going to have to install it. They're going to have to use Windows, Mac, or iPad only. Remember, Chromebooks at this time doesn't work. And then each institution has its own unique link for Respondus LockDown Browser, which is on that faculty.wtamu.edu page. So let's go ahead and do the demo. So for faculty, you'll have to go to Course Tools, and then you'll click on Respondus LockDown Browser. And then this is where you'll be able to access all the resources. So if you click on About LockDown Browser, the video will pop up. You can watch that. There's video tutorials as well, getting started, and any additional resources. And so this will always be there so you can refer back to it. Again, also, if you go to faculty.wtamu.edu, and you click on Respondus LockDown Browser, there's all the resources here as well. A statement that you can add to your syllabus. There's the create a practice exam, so you could download the practice test import file right here. So if I click there, it automatically downloads, and you can import it as a zip file into your course. And so this could be the practice test, or if you want to create your own practice test, you can, and it can be low stakes, no stakes. And then you'll turn on the settings for Respondus. And so when you click on Respondus and you see all your tests, so you have to have all your tests and your quizzes created to be able to turn on Respondus LockDown Browser or Respondus Monitor. And so we have test number 1 right here, and you click on settings, and this is where you'll be able to require Respondus LockDown Browser for the exam. You don't have to worry about password settings. You'll click advanced settings, and there are additional settings that you could add. And so I'll go over those real quick. So you can lock students into the browser until the exam is completed. Keep in mind, if they do have an emergency, this is something that we would not recommend that you select, so that they can write a message to you if they do close out early. It'll give them a notification, and then they'll be able to write a response. If you're going to allow your students to use the iPad, you do have to select allow students to take this exam with an iPad. If you want them to access specific external websites, you'll click allow access to specific external websites. So if it's a ebook, or if you want them to use Equasio. So some faculty that teach math or STEM courses, they might want them to use Equasio to submit some of the work. And so then you could include those URLs there. You'll be able to enable the calculator, the standard calculator, scientific calculator, and then if you wanted to enable printing from the toolbar. We would recommend that, you know, if you're going to, if you need a calculator, use it. If you want specific websites, use it. But most cases, you don't need all of them unless you have a specific requirement that you know that you're going to have students using iPads. Then make sure to check this one, and then external websites, and add those websites, and then the calculator. And so, and then you can click save and close. We're not going to go over Monitor right now. We'll go over it here in a second. But that's how you turn on Respondus LockDown Browser. So students have to, they will have to install the LockDown Browser first. And then once it's installed, and they've taken the practice exam, then they'll be able to, you know, test the environment, make sure it all works. And then every other test after that, it should be pretty easy for them to go to their desktop and click on the LockDown Browser to access your exams that require all browsers to be locked down. Or, you know, if you have specific URLs, they'll be able to access. So I do want to go back real quick to the practice test, because many of you might be wondering, how do we import that into the course? And so if I go back to this faculty help page, you'll click download the practice test import. Then you'll go back to your WT course, and you will need to click on packages and utilities, and you're going to click import packages or import package. So when you click import package, you'll be able to browse your computer. Let's see, downloads. And there's that practice test, so I can click there. And I'm going to select all and then click submit. And so that will import the practice tests. So we'll give it a seconds, and we should get a message, and I should get a message in my email, and then I'll be able to see this test and apply the settings for Respondus LockDown Browser. Does anyone have questions on how to set up Respondus LockDown Browser? Any clarifying questions?
So Chris, I have a question. So while
Yes.
they're using this, they cannot be using Excel at the same time?
No, applications, they won't be able to use any applications. It'll force shut applications.
Okay, thanks.
Hey, Chris, I have a question about bandwidth. So if I have students with really not great internet connections, does Respondus take more, or is that a concern at all?
You know, I think when we look at the technology requirements for online courses, one of standard requirements is a secure Wi-Fi connection. And so before the semester, it's really important for students to make sure that they do have all their equipment for secure Wi-Fi. If not, they do have access to the help. There will be limitations for signing up to get into it. So those are things that I would definitely consider including in your syllabus. And I know there's some faculty that are doing that as well.
So Chris, I would just add, my summer class was farm management, and then it's an online Excel class is my summer too. And some of our ag kids are in relatively rural areas, and I really didn't have a lot of trouble. I mean, every once in a while I would have one that got kicked out and I had to reset it or something like that. But for the most part, everybody was okay.
Okay, so, and we did have a, let's see. So, Tim, if you are able to go to the Equatio training tomorrow, the STEM training, that will help with students being able to submit their lab images, photographs using Equatio. And in one submission versus multiple submissions. And so the environment in Equatio, you'll be able to, students are able to get a unique link, and then they'll be able to submit their lab reports. And it could be images, one or two on each slide, and you'll be able to see those and give feedback. And so I would suggest that. Yep, you can insert images and questions on Blackboard as well in the assessment tool.
Yeah, so Tim, I'll provide you a little bit of background. So I use images for like tables, or maybe it's a graph and they need to identify particular portions of that graph in some of my exams, even ones that didn't use Respondus. And so you should be able to put those in the question, just like they would be referring to a figure, they would refer to that picture.
Okay, yeah, so yeah, sorry about the confusion. You're gonna be able to build the images within your questions, yes. Okay, so I am gonna go back to course tools, click on Respondus LockDown Browser, and you'll see that the practice test is there. I imported it. So basically, just to kind of give a real quick recap, go to the faculty resources, click on the download practice test import file. You're gonna import that here, and then once you do that, the test is there, and then you click settings, require, don't worry about the password, and then you can choose any of these settings. At this point, I'm not going to do that. And then you click save and close.
I have a quick question for you, Chris. So once, if you do that in one class, and let's say, because the practice test is the same, right, for all the classes, or it could be the same for all the classes that we're using that Respondus for, could we just take it from one class and just copy it in other classes, considering that, I mean, we would have to make sure that we have the Respondus tool turned on, but
Right.
it would carry on all the settings that we have set up at that first time, correct?
You could do that. If it was the same course and you have multiple sections, you know, we would recommend copying, you know, the whole course to, you know, your new shells for the fall. If it's different courses, we would recommend that you just import this file into each new course so that you're not mixing any other tests, because what happens is if you're copying tests from one course to the next, it'll copy all of your previous tests. And so it would be better to
Separate
import,
down.
yeah, import
Okay.
the file. So
Okay.
Respondus settings on an individual exam cannot copy between courses, if I remember correctly. You have to turn it on within each individual course.
Okay,
So
Chris,
like that practice test import file, it's actually a course export that only has the practice test that's deployed.
Okay.
That way, when you import it in, you don't have to also deploy it in lessons.
Okay,
But
that makes sense.
it doesn't have the Respondus set up on it because that won't export out.
That was my question. So you have to set it with Respondus for every course to make sure that it's turned on.
Yes, for every
Okay,
course.
thank you.
thank you, Krista. Let's see. Okay, so there we go. Dr. Vestal, did you have any tips for Respondus LockDown Browser before I move into Monitor and show the demo?
So the only thing that, and this is probably the appropriate place to talk about it, is if you allow students to purchase an online textbook. And I put this in the chat box as well. So for my summer 1 course, they didn't have a textbook, or they didn't get to utilize their textbook on an exam. And so you have to understand, my primary goal in using Monitor and LockDown Browser was really, I wanted to know if students were taking their test by themselves in an environment and not collaborating and group testing and things of that nature. And so for my summer 2 class, it's an open book test. But if you allow any type of if they have a PDF of their textbook, they're going to have 2 separate devices. If it's different websites, then you have to have all of those URLs. So that's just something to think about if you're wanting to use this tool, if you allow them to use electronic textbooks. And so I had to do some workarounds with electronic textbooks with that.
Thank you.
Sure.
So we're going to move on to Respondus Monitor. And so keep in mind that Respondus LockDown Browser locks down their browser, and it might not be the full proof for test integrity, and Respondus Monitor could help with test integrity, but ultimately faculty will have to review the data from Respondus Monitor to determine if the student is cheating. And so you will be able to review the video footage of your student taking the test, and it'll actually do some helpful AI, artificial intelligence work for you, so that it'll flag any activity that might be high priority. And so Monitor works directly with LockDown Browser. As you saw in the demo, there was an option to turn on Monitor, and so I'll show you guys how to do that here shortly. It'll prevent students from accessing external resources, again, unless they're able to. We have those URLs in the settings. It's going to record students taking the exam. You'll be able to review any suspicious activity, and it can help deter students from cheating. So it's kind of like when you're walking around your classroom to proctor an exam. You have your stern face and you're walking around and you're making sure that your students are on task, or you might give the eye. And so using Respondus Monitor will hopefully help faculty deter students from cheating. And so how to integrate, it's the same process for Respondus LockDown Browser. You go to those tools and you'll go to Respondus LockDown Browser and we'll go through the settings. And then it gives you all of the class results so that you can review videos, any flags, and I'll show you that here shortly.
Just an observation. During the spring, I had a situation with a student. We had the monitor on. The student was kicked out of the exam for the AI's conclusion that the student was cheating, and it was very expensive in terms of everyone's time. We don't think the student was cheating. We think the situation was poor internet connections. So what you said earlier about making sure students up front this fall, if we're going to be doing this, they need to have solid internet connectivity, because there are some hiccups, and I just want you to be aware of that as a possibility. Right. Once you set those settings, the monitor itself will kick them out if it observes that they're really cheating or it thinks they're cheating.
Thank you, Dr. Haddock.
So I just wanted to say, I don't think it's not like Examity Respondus Monitor. Like Examity, there's somebody watching, or there's supposed to be somebody watching. There's a proctor there, but Respondus just doesn't kick students out. I don't know that it can detect cheating. It just does like detections on movement or sounds, things like that, but it won't kick you out because of that.
Oh yes, yes it will. It will kick them out. It will drop. It will close the exam, and they cannot come back and finish. So just be aware of that.
I want to make, because I did see this happen over the semester, is if you check force complete on your exam and there is a blip, it will kick them out of LockDown Browser and Monitor. So
this was not force complete from Blackboard status. This was purely, in other words, it was, the standard forgiving kind of completion. So I just want everyone to be aware that is a possibility if the student has flaky internet.
Thank you for that. And I was just wanting to make sure that everybody knows about force completion as well, because that will kick your students out with any little blip. We did see that happen a lot during the semester.
Thank you, Yvonne. So this is a demo for Respondus Monitor. I wanted to share this video footage so that you can see how it looks like. So I had to record the monitor itself because I couldn't use any applications while using this, and so I'll explain the video. It doesn't have any audio, but basically your students, once they download it, they'll click on the icon and there is that message forcing the applications to close, and then the students will log in to Blackboard. So this is that unique link that's linked with that Respondus LockDown Browser install that students do. And then they can log in and they'll go to the course, your course, they'll go to the test, wherever it's located. And so this one says webcam. You'll notice that it says webcam. And so it'll take the student through the steps before they can begin it. So there are different settings that will allow you to make sure that they go through guidelines. So this is doing a network check, so that making sure the internet is bandwidth works well. Then there's that webcam check. you'll see me wearing a mask. Our team helped me record the video while I was practicing it. So, and then after the webcam check, so you have to record yourself to ensure that your webcam is working. And then there's going to be, they'll click continue. After that, then you'll do the additional instructions. You could actually edit these additional instructions. And then there's the guidelines to help them. And I'll go over that real quick here in a little bit so you can see. And then the students have to take a photo. And so they'll do a photo, and then after their photo, they'll do, they can do the ID photo as well. And so these are optional steps, but this is something that you might want to require just for identification purposes. And then they have to video record their environment so that they can show you what's around them. So for your additional instructions, you might include what they can have, what if they're allowed a scratch piece of paper, that's where you want to be able to put, you know, your additional instructions so that they know what they can have. And then they can begin their exam after all of that. So there's, you know, you don't have to do all of those settings, but those are all the settings available for you. Then it'll record your student as they're taking the exam, and if they move out of the webcam picture, it will put a message up and say no facial detection, you know, and then once the student gets back in there, then it'll allow them to take the test. And so I did get up at one point to get coffee and then came back and noticed that the message was there. And so then once I got back in view of the webcam, it allowed me to take the exam. And so Monitor is going to be recording the whole time. And so it will likely, it'll flag those moments where students might be moving around too much, and you'll be able to review those specific clips and ultimately make those decisions if your student was in fact cheating. And then also with the, you know, the settings and being able to check the bandwidth of a Monitor, you know, and having those safeguard statements on your syllabus to say these are the requirements for the technology requirements. It will hopefully help prevent students having issues using these tools if you plan to implement it. And so once they're done taking the test, they'll be able to tell you if they had any issues and submit, and then see their results. And then they'll be able to close out of the environment, and you'll be able to see and review your students' results and any flags. And so you guys will have access to this presentation, and you're more than welcome to, you know, take this student demo so they can see it as well. So from the student's perspective, you guys got to see it in the video. And so how do you all turn it on? And how do you access the data so that you're able to review and determine, you know, if a student is cheating? So I'll show that in the demo here in a sec, and then Dr. Vessel will be able to share some best practices based on what she's done so far using Monitor. So one of the things that is important for faculty to know is that you're going to be able to review based on priority. So AI technology is going to allow you to review your class results to determine which flags are high priority. And so that's the neat thing about this. And so you'll have access of all of the recordings, and you can look through the flags and determine which student you need to watch, and then make those decisions. There are areas where you'll be able to document notation so that you can go back to it for your reference. And one key thing is to know that these results are available to access 5 years based from the recording. And so, you'll be able to go back to it, later down the road. And so same thing, you'll go to the Respondus area and do the settings. So before I go into the results, I'd like to show you all how to turn it on and add the settings, and then we'll go into the results. So I'm going to require Respondus LockDown Monitor with this test right here. And so again, course tools, Respondus LockDown Browser, and then you'll be able to see all your tests here and click on settings. And so I've required Respondus LockDown Browser, so it's going to give me the option to do Monitor. Keep in mind, you have to use both. You have to use LockDown Browser to turn on Monitor. And so I'm going to require Monitor for this exam. So this gives you a little bit more information on, kind of reminds you, it's an add-on feature. It tells you what are the requirements, and it kind of gives you just a brief purpose of this tool. And so you can click continue. And then you'll notice that there are two grayed out areas. We have the webcam check, and then we have the facial detection check. These are mandatory, and so the rest are optional. You get to decide what you want your students to use during the startup sequence of taking their Respondus Monitor exam. And so this is where you'll be able to click on additional instructions, and you can click edit text, and you can change this text to your liking. And if you have additional requirements, if you want them to show their problems that they're working on, every 5 minutes, you can do that. And you want to include those instructions here. So I'm going to click cancel, and then there's the guidelines and tips. And so this is great because it's already ready. It's ready to use. Tells your students what they should be doing while they're taking the exam. So quiet location, making sure your internet is consistent and strong, how to place your device or your computer. Don't place it where it's tilted. You want to be able to see everything, see the person in view. Don't wear a hat, sunglasses. Make sure it's in a well-lit room. And then other things to remember, the workspace should be clean. There shouldn't be anything around you. And then a reminder of what LockDown Browser is. And so those are just some guidelines that reinforces, hey, this is what you need to do to prepare for this or make sure. And so as they get used to using these tools from the beginning, from that no stakes, low stakes practice exam, then and they use it, they'll be reminded, to have a clean area, have a well-lit area, making sure that the internet's working. And then you have your student video, photo. They'll have to take their photo if you want. If you don't want it, you can uncheck it. There's the show ID as well. And so, but I definitely think these are very helpful, especially if you're doing this for high stakes exam, and so you'll be able to have them show their photo ID and then environment check. And you can edit the text for environment check as well. So if there's certain things that they're allowed to have, this could be there as well, and you could include further instructions there. So there are these. Let's see, the facial detection options are a part of the startup sequence, and so that it ensures that the students do have their webcam and it's detected before they even start. So they won't be able to start it until everything is working. And so it will notify students during the exam if it cannot be detected. So when I moved, I got a message, and I wasn't able to take my exam with that message. I had to get back into the webcam to begin the exam again. So there are advanced settings. where you could allow another application to use the microphone during the exam, or make webcam videos additionally available for viewing on mobile devices. And these are things, if you're interested in learning more about that, we're happy to work with you all, but this is something that we wouldn't automatically suggest as you start to use these. And so these startup sequence would be something that we would recommend. And then once you select all of your settings, then you click Save and Close. Mallory, did you want to share any insights?
I think that's pretty much it. I did have one time that I forgot to do the advanced setting on the tablet. And so be sure, don't forget on the LockDown browser to enable tablets.
Yes, yep. So the tablets is going to be on the LockDown browser. And so you do have to enable that because it's not there in the sequence for Monitor. Thank you for reinforcing that. So that's how you turn on Respondus LockDown Browser Monitor. And so you always want to make sure that it's required once you save those settings, that it is required. And then your students will be able to go through those steps of, in that demo that I showed you before this. And so they'll be able to, they'll be able to go through the startup sequence, take their exam, and have their exam recorded. You'll be able to see the class results. And so how do you access the class results? And so to do that, you'll have to click on the exam toggle button right here, and you can click on class results. There are exam stats as well, give you an overview of your students' exam stats. So let me show you that first. There we go. Took a little bit. And so you'll have your average score, your exam results in a way where all the questions will be displayed and the time spent. And so this is probably, we have only had a few students take it, so it's hard to see. I'm going to click on class results so you could actually see that this is where you'll be able to review the students' results and be able to see the priorities. And so one of the things that I want to point out is how is priority determined? There's this hyperlink where you'll be able to read through the different priorities and flags. And so it's really important that faculty read through this resource so they understand tips, but also understand what are the flags and milestones. So when you click there, you'll be able to see the different flagged events that will be available for you to determine what happened in that video with your student. And so I would definitely bookmark this. You'll get this resource in a follow-up email after the training. And so this will help you all determine what the flags were and how to make decisions. And so how do you access the videos? And so you'll see the number of students completed, and then there's a list where you have the additional symbol right next to the student's name. And then you'll be able to click on it and you'll see that the review, let me go back real quick. You'll see the review priority column. You'll see the dates and the minutes right over here on how long they took, and then the score. And so when you want to go into a high priority student, you'll be able to see a summary of all the different flags right here, and then it'll tell you what the name of the text of the flag right here, the title of the flag, and then there's an explanation. And then you can click on each of the videos and watch your student and see what happened. And so I guess a part of me was missing. And so But let's go over here to, oh, there, the student's missing. And so you'll be able to click on, you know, that time and watch that video and see what's going on. And then you'll notice that there's the student photo and the ID and the environment video as well. And so those are the first 3 videos. And so you'll be able to review if needed based on the priority of the flag. And so, so that's how you are able to review. They're gonna be flagged in a way where it will say high or low, and then you'll be able to review the students. So you have a low student and there's no flags right here, but it does say video frame rate lowered due to quality of internet connection. So it does tell you that. You'll see student photos, student ID, the environment. So this is to help, you know, prevent your students from cheating. But this is a very, I mean, it's a great resource tool for you all to use as you're teaching online to deter students from cheating. And so I think the next thing I'd like for us to do is I'm going to give Dr. Oh, we have a question. Did you want to get on? You're more than welcome to unmute and ask your question. Or maybe you raised your hand on accident. Dr. Vessel, did you want to share your screen and
So
show?
whenever, just because since we're recording here, I just wanted to let y'all know that once we finish and go through everything, and Chris, tell me when that is, when we stop recording, then I'll show you my screen of my summer classes, because it has, of course, all of the results. And I'll share with you some students that were marked high and then why they were marked high.
We're going to edit this last portion of so you're okay. You're more than welcome to start sharing your screen. So I'm going to stop mine. Instructional designers, we are here to help support y'all. We do have additional trainings that are coming up. We have a training on Equatio tomorrow, so there's some new updates to that. So if you're a math or STEM faculty that wants to build accessible math and STEM equations, please feel free to register. Also, boot camp, we'll have more boot camp virtual opportunities in August. So we'll be sending out a follow-up with this recording and additional resource links. Thank you all for being a part of today's training. Thank you, Dr. Vessel, for being a part of it too. I think it was really helpful for them to see from your lens.
So, and I would just say that the faculty support page is such a great resource. So if you don't have that in your bookmarks or your most frequently visited, I would encourage it because it is so great. Faculty.wtmu.edu. You can find all kinds of links, all kinds of information. Our instructional designers have spent countless hours putting together those tools, and they're really great info.
Y'all have a good afternoon.